Hello everybody, welcome to my little corner of the internet where we talk about Christian theology, Christian philosophy, and Christian living. In today's video, I want to talk to you about topical Bible studies and tips and tricks to take yours to the next level. First, what is a topical Bible study? A topical Bible study is simply just picking a topic in the Bible and doing a deep dive on it. For example, I've done deep dives on baptism, on speaking in tongues, the spiritual gifts, the gospel, and all four of these studies have deeply enriched my understandings of these topics. Now, I don't recommend that you just do topical Bible studies exclusively because I do think it's important to read the whole Bible all the way through. But if you find yourself having a question about a topic or a concept in the Bible, doing a topical Bible study on those topics is a great way to get your questions answered. And again, I don't recommend that you just do topical Bible studies, but it is a great and excellent tool to use as you study the Bible. So what are some ways that you could take your topical Bible study to the next level? Over the years that I've done topical Bible studies, I've discovered some tips and tricks that have helped me, and I want to share them with you. So without further ado, I want to share with you 7 tips and tricks that have helped me over the years. The first tip is to remember that God isn't a school topic, and we shouldn't study God in the same way that we study other things. The way that you study God should look different and should be done for different reasons. It is great if you have a zeal for knowledge and learning about God, but many people, and I'm including myself in this group too, have a tendency to just turn God into another topic to be studied, where God isn't just a topic to be studied, He's a person to be loved and to be followed and to be praised, to be worshipped, to be revered. My biggest piece of advice is no matter what you do, keep your relationship with God alive in your studies. The primary goal should be to learn more about God so that you can know Him better and deepen your relationship with Him. I recommend incorporating prayer and quiet time in your studies because the main goal isn't the learning of knowledge, it's the deepening of your relationship with God by learning more about Him. The second tip I have is to write down what you already know about the topic and do a quick check to make sure that it's accurate. For example, when I was doing my baptism study, before I did a deep dive, I wrote down what I already knew about baptism. I knew that the original word for baptism meant to submerge. I wrote down that Jesus was baptized and He commanded His followers to be baptized and to baptize others. When I was doing a deep dive on speaking in tongues, I wrote down the story of Pentecost. Writing down what you already know about the topic can be a great way to refresh your mind and to give you a foundation of sorts to build the rest of your studies upon. The third tip is to have 1 or 2 main questions to help guide your studies. So if you're like me, whenever you start a study, you probably have an abundance of questions, like a grocery list full of questions that you want to tackle. And that's great. It's great that you have questions and that you're working on finding the answers. But tackling all those questions at once can be a little overwhelming. So instead of having like 10 or 12 questions to answer, I usually try to whittle them down to 1 or to 2 because I've found that that gives me a direction. And by answering those 2 questions, I can usually find the answers of all my other questions too. It just makes it a little easier and gives you a direction to go in. The fourth tip is to gather all of the passages of scripture that talk about your topic and read them in their context. What I wish more people knew about the Bible is that context is key. Yeah, you can go on the internet and search up verses, but if you don't know the context of what those verses are, you can come to some incorrect conclusions. One of the things that we're doing when we're doing a topical Bible study is enriching our knowledge of the text and who the text is about. And to do that, you have to know who wrote the passage, who is it written to, how does that passage play with the overall theme of the book, and what was the writer trying to say to his audience? You have to consider all of that when determining what the meaning of a passage is because all of that stuff matters. You could do all things through a verse out of context, So it's best to put those verses back into context, because in doing so, only then can you get to the bottom of what it really means. The fifth tip is to research what other people have said about your topic. Read what scholars have written. Listen to sermons that pastors have preached over the years. If you have a study Bible, take advantage of the footnotes because they can hold a lot of useful information. The thing is, you don't have to do all of the work yourself. You can use the work that other people have done before you to help. We in the modern day have a great blessing of having access to countless sources of information, and these resources can really help us learn. And as you research what other people have said, I encourage you to read a variety of standpoints and opinions to have a well-rounded view of what Group A says about the topic, what Group B says about the topic, and what Group C says about the topic. Even if you disagree with what the resource says, it is still very useful because it causes you to think deeper about the topic. When I was studying speaking in tongues, half of my resources were continualist and half of my resources were cessationalist. Two completely opposite sides of the spectrum. And then I had a lot of resources that fell in the middle. Reading all of those resources was very helpful because I got to consider everything. I got to see which standpoints held up to the test of scrutiny. I got to see which standpoints did not hold up to the test of scrutiny, and it really allowed me to break free from the echo chamber. A lot of people can underestimate the damage that living in an echo chamber can cause. When the only ideas that you are exposed to are the ideas that you already agree with, there's no growth in that. Tip number 6 is to write down your findings. So when I was studying the gospel, baptism, speaking in tongues, I had a document on my computer that I wrote my findings in. Whether you do it on a computer or on a piece of paper, I've come to find that writing down what I learned helps it stick in my brain better. And it helps me organize the topic. It gives me something that I can see and touch. For me, it just helps the process of information analyzation. And it helps me piece everything together. And tip number 7 is don't do this by yourself. Proverbs 27 verse 17 says, "As iron sharpens iron, so does one man sharpen another man." And I've come to find that that is so true. When I was studying speaking in tongues, I had the opportunity to share what I wrote down with my Sunday school group, and we had an amazing conversation that helped me learn more. And they pointed out some of the things that I got wrong, they pointed out some of the things that I got right, and interacting with them helped me put together a more robust understanding of what speaking in tongues is. Christianity is personal, but it's not private, and it's not meant to be done in solitude. Use the people that God has placed in your life because they can teach you, and you can also teach them. Just as iron sharpens iron, one person sharpens another, and that is especially true in learning about God and learning about what the scriptures say. So those are my 7 tips and tricks. You've heard my thoughts. I want to hear yours. What do you think about topical Bible studies? Do you have any tips and tricks that have helped you that I missed? If you do, I would love to hear them. Please feel free to leave them in the comment section below, and let's continue this conversation together. Let's do what Proverbs 27:17 says, and let's sharpen each other. I want to thank you guys for watching this video, and I hope you have a great day.